We see a group of people standing on top of a mountain in the middle of the desert, led by one man. He has a golden glow, shining just like the burning sun that scorches the land. The mountain itself looks like it has mechanical parts mixed into it. Below, we see a giant railroad stretched across the desert. Across the scene, the words appear like a declaration. This generation belonged to the desperados. The man leading the group is Jim Godspeed, a very famous criminal. He informs his partners in crime that his son is on the way and that he has a favor to ask on his behalf. His men promise to help him, but they're curious about the payment. Godspeed tells them that his son should have about $10 million on him. His men are surprised, but they don't question it. One of his men asked if he's planning to rob the train, and if so, they're willing to lend a hand as long as they got a small cut of the spoils. With intimidation, Godspeed asked them if they really believe that he needed any of their help. They quickly apologized, reassuring him that they meant no disrespect. They remind him of his own legend, Jim Godspeed, the criminal who had ruled the desert for centuries, a living myth, the possessor of the golden arms, a man of untold wealth. That did not change his mood. He made it clear. They can do whatever they want with his son's money, but if they get in the way of his hunt, he would show no mercy, even though they are his own men. They got the message. One of them quickly apologized, swearing they would not interfere. Godspeed told them to get things ready for his son and said he would pay them $5 million up front. That seemed to ease the tension. One of them tried to lighten the mood, joking that Godspeed is acting like a father now. Godspeed told them to not get the wrong idea, because as long as his son was alive, his wealth meant nothing. That got some of his group confused. Then he clarified. His son was coming to kill him. The group fell silent. No one knew what to say. From the distance, they heard the sound of a train approaching. But it wasn't looking like any normal train. Its entire body was covered in mechanical parts, making it look more like a fortress rather than a train. Turns out, it wasn't just a simple transportation train. It was the Intercontinental United States Central Bank. IGTN 500 series, a train built to transport gold. In the next scene, Jim Godspeed is on the railroad. The train is quickly approaching him. The captain of the train immediately recognizes Jim Godspeed. Then the captain turns on the train's defense mechanism. It is revealed that the train is loaded with weaponry to defend itself from criminals like Jim Godspeed. The moment Godspeed gets excited about the confrontation, he hears something from behind him. It was his son. Before they could duel, Godspeed offers to join forces so they can take down the train as a family. A couple of months later, a sheriff with some of his men, while crossing through the desert, stumble upon a guy who is dragging a giant coffin behind him through the desert. We see a closer shot of the man pulling the coffin. The coffin is in the shape of a cross. The man is very hungry, he's very thirsty, and he's very hot, blaming the sun for trying to kill him. The sheriff approaches the guy and asks him if he crossed the desert all by himself, says that it's unbelievable, but before he can get any answers, the guy is asking the sheriff for some water. He says that he's been surviving on eating mice and drinking water from cacti for the past month. The sheriff and his men are quite surprised that he was able to survive like that through the desert, especially since he's also naked. But before giving him water, the sheriff asks the guy what's his name. He reveals that his name is Jim Godspeed, Jim Godspeed's son. The sheriff and his men are quite surprised, and then they notice the writing on the coffin. It says, Jim Godspeed, dead man walking, along with the years of the birth and death. By doing some calculations, we can figure out that M. Godspeed was 1,031 years at the time of death. We are also getting a hint that the story is happening in the far future. The sheriff is surprised that somebody as invincible as M. Godspeed is finally dead. Jim Godspeed informs the sheriff that he himself killed his own father, and he is lugging around the coffin as a proof of that. The sheriff and his boys opened the coffin to check. Jim did not mind that because he was planning on showing them anyway. It was revealed to the sheriff that it was true the moment he opened the coffin and saw the golden arms of the legendary Godspeed. One of the men asks the sheriff if they should take the credit because the bounty for the head of M. Godspeed is $10 million. And this guy here is all by himself, and they could get rid of him and take the reward for themselves and split it. They notice that besides Jim being naked, tired, he also does not have a gun, which makes him a sitting duck. Also, since they are in the middle of the desert, nobody will ever find his corpse. One of the men mentions that they could throw his corpse into the ruins where nobody will ever find it. And we're shown the ruins, which look like the desert was formed on top of an ancient city, which looked very technologically advanced. The sheriff even suggests that he might be able to take the golden arms for himself. So together they all decide to trick Jim into coming closer to the edge of the ruins. But before they could do that, out of the ruins comes out a bunch of armed men riding a mechanical construction resembling the train we saw earlier. They express their interest in claiming the rewards for delivering M. Godspeed's body for themselves. After their initial attack, the only survivor was the sheriff, who got wounded in the shoulder, and Jim Godspeed himself, who now is furious and tells everybody to keep their hands away from his father. Then he grabs the lid of the coffin and uses it to take out several of the bandits. The rest of the men try to shoot at him, but Jim is using the coffin's lid as a shield. Then he reached his hand into the coffin, where besides the body of his father, there was also his father's guns. He took out one of the guns, and while using the coffin's lid as a shield, he took out several other of the bandits. Then, before delivering the final blow, he states that even though he is knocking on death's door, he'll still make sure that nobody ever forgets the name of the best in the West, Jim Godspeed. The wounded sheriff watched all of this, and he is in disbelief. Then Jim approached the sheriff, asked him if the academy is round these parts. The sheriff is surprised, and he asks if the Western United States Marshal Training Institute is what Jim is looking for. Jim confirms that that's the one. The sheriff is surprised. He tells Jim that the academy is for the elite kids of the marshals and rangers. And since Jim is the son of the most wicked out of all the criminals, those students at the academy will kill him, and Jim should forget about getting admitted. But Jim informs him that there is a special enrollment program. Anyone can join so long as they can prove they're worthy of being a marshal. It's a marshal's job to take out outlaws, no matter who they are. The sheriff realizes that Jim killed his own father and crossed the whole desert with his coffin so that he can enroll in the Marshal Academy. Jim tells him that that's not quite the reason, but if that's what the sheriff wants to believe, he can do that. He's just aiming to be a marshal, that is his only goal. The sheriff accuses him of trying to get into the elite academy so he can take the advantage of the $10 million bounty and rub elbows with the rich kids, thus washing his hands from the life of a criminal. He says that it's a marshal's job to catch criminals. It was never for the bounty. Shortly after, Jim reached the town and was approved to enroll into the academy he was aiming for. A week later, Jim finally regains his full strength. He says that eat enough of anything and it's sure to do your body good, even if it's mice. And so with that, Jim is finally ready to start his life as a student. The story will continue. Subscribe for more. Like the video if you liked it. Thanks for watching.